it's Mark. I've been doing some reading and some watching of some very interesting YouTube videos on the subject of quantum computing, which I find to be a fascinating subject. I don't know if you've ever studied this. I mean, even in my general interest sense, but at the core of quantum computing are tiny bits referred to as qubits, which, unlike the physics of, I was going to say normal life, but that's not true, unlike standard physics, the particles, these qubit particles, can be in two states at once, simultaneously. So the particle could be, for example, rotating counterclockwise while at the exact same time rotating clockwise. I mean, go figure. But there's an analogy there, and that's the analogy of what's going on inside a medical group. This notion of two states at once. Many groups just have a single state. It's just doing business as usual and struggling often at that. Other times, you could use this analogy to look at the sort of single state of playing a defensive game or a game of simply treading water, of wanting this year to be as good as last, if not slipping behind, and then with a bureaucratic mindset, basically trying to negate any challenge to maintaining the status quo. I mean, you not only see this in medical groups, you see it in businesses within healthcare, outside of healthcare, any sort of a business. It's simply staying afloat and hoping that competitors aren't going to take from you. The share of the pie notion, as opposed to what can we do to change the size of the pie, or even what can we do to make a different sort of pie. The other state is the state of making an innovative jump, of not just improving what you are doing, but finding something else to do, or an entirely different way of doing it, of an entirely different way of meeting your target audience's goal, as opposed to simply focusing on the way that you've been meeting that goal now. So for example, there's the old and probably at this point trite expression that customers don't buy a drill because they want a drill, they buy a drill because they want holes, and therefore you see all sorts of improvements of the drill, keyless chucks, wireless or battery-driven drills, as opposed to the kind that you plug in. But at least not yet at Home Depot has somebody figured out a way of creating a hole with something different, I don't know, a laser, than simply making an incremental improvement on a drill. So within a medical group, the concept really should be, how can we both defend against what we have now, and at the same time, simultaneous, like those qubits, how can we find ways of innovating? How can we use the tools that we have? How can we use the thinking processes? How can we use the resources, managerial, legal, and otherwise, to not simply protect ourselves, but to innovate ourselves into another position? Think about it. Try to be like one of those qubits, two states at the same time.